Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first session of HLF 2024. This is the inaugural plenary, and we have Amish to inaugurate the festival, as it were. This is the first plenary, and we are delighted. For those of you who have been regular visitors to HLF over the years, probably you would recognize that Amish was with us several years ago, and he remembers that. And I just told him that it was in 2012. So it took a good 12 years for him to come back to HLF. We hope to see him more often at HLF.
My sincere apologies. But in my defense, I was in the UK for 4.5 years.
I know. Yeah. So, welcome Amish, welcome back to Hyderabad. I'm sure the Hyderabad that probably you remember was very different from what probably you see now.
Well, you know, I have family members in Hyderabad actually. My sister-in-law, my hey, hi Nanda, how are you? Hey, good to see you. Yeah, an ex-boss of mine, and a very nice boss. My elder brother's wife, my bhabhi, Meeta, she's from Hyderabad actually. So we'd come here for the wedding. That was in 1995. It was a very different city then. Has grown so much, and so has India, I guess. I think in 1995, India's GDP was just a little bigger than the sales of the American car industry. So just 3 American car companies made almost as much money as all of India. We were that poor. Today, we are even richer than, our GDP is even bigger than the UK. So, and Hyderabad has played a major role. So a round of applause for all Indians.
Just to, by the way, this is the book that we are going to talk about, Amish's latest book, Idols. And since he begins this book with 3 anecdotes, I would like to begin with one anecdote. A couple of weeks ago, we have been coming to this place to check this place out and make arrangements, etc. And during one of those visits, I was having a chai there. And so somebody said, what is happening? And remember, this is an IT park. And so somebody said, what is happening? So we said, we are going to have a literary fest. He said, okay, so what do you do? I said, well, I try to organize it and things like that. So then he said, are you going to be talking to somebody? I said, yes, I'm going to talk to Amish. And of course, his eyes lit up. And he said, what about? Is it about Meluha? I said, no, that's history. He has a new book called Idols. So, which season? He asked. I was zapped. I said, what do you mean, which season? He said, Indian Idols. So I said, no. This is not about, Indian Idols. This is about Murti Puja. And he was a little disturbed. He said, why is Amish writing about that man? No, I said, now which man? He said, Narayan Murthy. I mean, remember, this is the IT park.
I'm thinking I should stop writing now.
So, that's very interesting that, the moment I said idols, he thought of Indian idols, and when I said Murthy, he thought about Narayan Murthy. So I said, okay, come on 26th and listen to Amish. I don't know if he would be here.
Having said that, I do know Narayan Murthy ji and Sudha Murthy ji, and met them in London as well. They're really Indian treasures.
Yes.
And they've done wonderful service. And since you mentioned Indian idols, I used to sing also in I Am Calcutta, but now I croak.
Yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, this is his latest book, Idols, which is subtitled Unearthing the Power of Murti Puja. Amish, let me begin by asking you that many of us have seen you begin with fiction. But these days, you seem to be moving away from fiction into non-fiction. This is his 3rd non-fiction book. And this is a kind of a companion book to his earlier book on Dharma. So this is his third non-fiction book. So I was wondering whether you are kind of moving away from fiction into non-fiction, and or you are kind of intermixing them. What exactly is the trajectory of your writing?
Oh no, no, I'm going to keep coming out with fiction, and there is the fifth book of the Ramchandra series that is to come, which those of you who've read both the Ramchandra series and the Shiva trilogy, which I hope is all of you, and those who haven't, the books are available here. The Ramchandra series is a 1500-year prequel to the events of the Shiva trilogy. So the fifth book of the Ramchandra series will link Ramchandra series and the Shiva trilogy together. The fifth book is titled Rise of Meluha. The title itself makes it obvious. That links it all together. So I'm going to keep writing fiction. But look, my fiction books are also story wrappers for philosophies that I want to speak of. So the idea for the non-fiction is, how about if I communicate the non-fiction itself, the philosophies itself directly. There are some who read the books just as stories. That's okay. It's up to the reader. But there are some of my readers who go deeper into the stories and go into the philosophies that I'm trying to discuss. So the non-fiction books is for those aficionados who want to go deeper into the philosophy. So I speak of dharma, I speak of Murti Puja. I have another non-fiction book I'm thinking of. I may come out with a few years later. I was advised not to do it while I was still a diplomat. And this book will be my thoughts on, and the title of the book is The Decline of the West and Lessons for Indians from it. So these are all non-fiction books. I think the West has made some long-term strategic mistakes which India should not repeat as we rise. So these are non-fiction books which is for the aficionados who want to go deeper. There are the story books as well which also cover these philosophies.
But even the non-fiction books have a very interesting story. I mean, the frame that you use
Through conversations.
Through conversations.
Yeah.
But I was also wondering, before I asked that question, I was wondering whether you have a Shiva trilogy, you have a Ramchandra, 4 books. Now, I was wondering whether this is going to be, is this part of a series? Because this is the second book
Actually,
after
there
Dharma.
will be. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is also a part of, because I want to discuss various philosophies. How many of you guys read non-fiction? A show of hands. A good number.
Yeah.
I primarily read non-fiction as well. How many of you read Western non-fiction books? Yeah. You'll find that Western non-fiction books is actually like it symbolizes the way the West looks at truth itself. The West, Middle East, they're all, this is very clear. So you were saying something?
No.
Okay. The West, Middle East is very clear that this is one truth and everything else is false. And if you don't believe in this one truth, the extreme form is you'll burn in hell for eternity. You'll notice this animates their entire way of life. Okay, so if you believe in feminism, you have to hate men. If you believe in transgender rights, you have to hate women. They don't get the concept of multiple truths. It doesn't come easy to them. They don't get the concept of balance. Us Indians get it instinctively. Okay, the concept of multiple truths. So you see a Western non-fiction book, it's always structured as this is the hypothesis and my job is to convince you of the hypothesis. So there was a book called The Wisdom of the Crowds. How many of you have read that? Wisdom of the Crowds? It's an old book, maybe 20, 25 years old. The entire concept was how cumulative wisdom of the crowds, the decisions that they make, usually end up being right. And the entire book was to convince you of this. There's no concept of, should we look at the other side also? Okay. There's another book that came out now, forgetting the title, The Stupidity of the Crowds. I haven't read it as yet. And that entire book is the exact opposite. This is the hypothesis. My job is to convince you of it. All Western non-fiction books are always like this. This is one truth. You better believe it. Right? Whereas the Indian approach is, this is a point of view. This is also a point of view. I'm presenting the best of both of them to you. Now you think about it. and believe what you think is right. Okay? Because balance comes instinctively to us, right? So, which is why this book is written as conversations. How many of you have read any of the Upanishads? Isha Upanishad, Katha Upanishad, any of them? You'll notice most of our Upanishads are structured as conversations. You'll have people talking to each other. Like the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, yeah? Maharishi ka Yagnavalkya and Maharishi ka Gargi. So, and they represent different, and they debate with each other. So the benefit for you as a reader is you hear two different points of view and make up your own mind. That's what we've done in this book. You'll have different characters who represent different points of view. Then you think about it and make up your own mind, which is the Indian way.
Check. But isn't that also the Socratic method? The question
Spot on. And in fact, we mentioned that in there. So that was, it's called the Platonic dialogue. So Socrates, Plato, Aristotle kind of perhaps stopped this a bit. But you'll notice that was the approach of the pagan Greeks. It stopped when they Christianized. The concept of dialogues of multiple points of view, it remained only till the Greeks and the Romans were pagans. So perhaps this is more a pagan idol worshipping approach. We are comfortable with multiple truths. And it just comes easy to us, yes. So you do a pop quiz in the south, you ask people, is Lord Karthik, actually let's do that. Is Lord Karthik a bachelor or is he married? Married? Who says married? Yeah, married. How many agree that Lord Karthik is married? Yeah? I'm betting most of you are South Indians. Okay, now put your hands down. How many of you say Lord Karthik is a bachelor? Yeah, many people. I'm betting most of you are North Indians. You'll notice I put my hands up both the times. Okay, because when I'm in the South, when I go to a Lord Karthik temple, yeah, he has 2 wives. When I'm in the North, okay, he's a bachelor. We are comfortable with multiple truths. It just comes instinctively to us Indians. There is no concept of you have to believe my truth, otherwise I have to convert you or kill you or you have to go to hell. These are immature philosophies.
No, Amish, I just want you to go a little deeper into this whole concept of instinctiveness. You have been saying that, Indians are instinctively, they accept multiple truths, etc. Where does this instinctiveness come from? I mean, why are they instinctively like that?
I think it's part of growing up. I think there are certain philosophies that we follow. One of them is idol worshipping, is Murti Puja. And which is what we discuss in this book, Idols. Look, what is the concept of idol worshipping? The philosophy at the heart of it is that I see the divine in everything. That's what idol worshipping actually means. Because the ones who reject idols, they say that any of these images are not God. You are not God. The earth itself is not divine. It is the product of original sin. That's one approach. The other approach is everything is divine, including the idols that we worship. Now, if everything is divine, if everyone knows what namaste means, right? I'd say, yeah, I bow to the divine within you. Yeah. So, and you don't just say this to other human beings. We say this we do namaste to trees, to rivers. We see the divine in everything. Now, if you see the divine in everything, you will instinctively respect that person's point of view. Because you're saying, I respect the divine in you. It's just that don't force your point of view on me. I'll not force my point of view on you. You don't force your point of view on me. It comes instinctively in idol worshippers. That's why the ancient Greek pagans were also comfortable with multiple truths. And in my view, particularly in India, Indian Islam and Indian Christianity is also actually comfortable with multiple truths. You'll notice that, for example, in Haji Ali in Mumbai or Ajmer Sharif, essentially we are praying to the tomb of a Sufi Muslim saint, right? Which is in a way seeing divinity in there, right? You know, there was a Pew survey that had come out recently. And they'd asked people of different religions in India that do you believe that all religions are true? Okay. They'd asked these questions in Pakistan. You can imagine what the results were out there. 99% said only my religion is true. All others are false. They have to be killed or converted. In India, of course, some 85-90% of Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, Sikhs said yes. 85-90% of Indian Muslims said yes. Indian Christians said yes, that all religions are true. Okay. So it's something in the way we Indians approach truth. We see divinity in everything. And I think at the heart of it is idol worshipping and seeing divinity in everything. Instinctively makes you respect different points of view.
See, if
Like
we
I'll respect your point of view or I might disagree with it, but I'll not say you're evil. You have a different point of view, that's okay. That doesn't make you evil.
Yeah. So if the divine, if the supreme being is kind of formless, right, nirgun, why do we need to limit the divine and give it a concrete form?
Very good point. Because the reality of us human beings is we find it very difficult to understand Nirgun Nirakar, formless, without any attributes. That may be the truth, that there is, the Nirgun Nirakar, but we find it very difficult to understand. We normally need a form. And this was the concept that our ancestors had. There were four concepts in a way of divinity. One is the Nirgun Nirakar form of God. The second is the Akar form of God, where God has taken a form. Like how we see Lord Vishnu, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva when he has a form. Because we Shaivites believe Shiva is a formless entity as well, but Lord Shiva when he has a form. And then there's the third concept, the avatar concept of God, where God takes birth, does his or her karma, and then goes back up. And the fourth, like I said, Namaste, that all of us are gods, right? Why do we need a form? So that it's easier to understand. It's like some of us have been unfortunate enough to lose one or both of our parents, right? And of course we remember them. Of course we love them. But we still want a picture of them to remind us of them. Now, someone can come and say that, yeah, you're silly or what, this picture is not your father. That doesn't matter. For me, this picture gives me a sense of connection to him. And you'll notice, I don't know how many of you do this. Some of us would never smoke or drink in front of our parents. It happens in India that you'll not smoke or drink even in front of the pictures of your parents. I don't know if that happens with some people. And someone can tell you, yeah, this is stupid, yeah, it's not your father, it's a picture of your father. But somewhere in your mind, it's still there, no, he's looking at me through that, right? What does that do? Gives you a handle to connect. That's essentially what this concept is. And it's of course aided with the concept that everything is divine. So it preaches instinctive liberalism and it helps you grow spiritually and philosophically.
But isn't there also a danger involved in that?
Hello?
Yeah.
Technical रुकावट के लिए खेद है.
Isn't there a danger involved in giving a human form to a divine power that in a way we project ourselves onto the divine, right? I'll give you a concrete example. The Telugu speaking states had one chief minister, Mr. N.T. Ramarao, who was a very popular character, and he was popular for playing the roles of divine figures.
I've seen some of those movies.
Right. And when statues were being set up on what we call the tank bund, it looked as if all the statues looked like N.T. Ramarao. Right.
Really? Is that true? Wow.
And there were some temples where it is supposed to be a Rama temple, and it was actually looking like N.T. Ramarao. So I was saying that by projecting ourselves, our own limitations of our imagination onto a Murti, right, are we actually not reducing what you said, the omnipresence of God?
Um, there is both a plus and a minus in this. How many of you have seen that 1980s television serial, Ramayan? Yeah? Who had played Lord Ram's character? Arun Govil. You notice even today, if someone meets him,
They touch his feet.
they touch his feet. And Arun Govil ji is so careful about how he behaves because he's very conscious, you know, that though he keeps getting embarrassed, please don't touch my feet, please don't touch my feet, right? So is there a danger of us projecting our beliefs and thoughts into that? Yes, but there's a plus and a minus in this. The plus is it would make Arun Govil ji and many around him behave better, which he does actually, if you see, right? The minus is our spiritual growth may stop. Now, one of the things our ancestors said, there is no perfect path, there is no perfect truth. And in fact, they used to say that those who believe in perfection are usually the ones who cause the greatest crimes. Because they start believing, my perfection is perfect. You don't believe in it, I have to kill you or convert you, right? Which is where most of these crimes start from. So, what they used to say is that every path that you choose, be aware of the strengths, be aware of the weaknesses, and then try and do the best that you can in that path. Let me explain this with a few examples, okay? So, there are different paths to divinity in our way. So, actually, this is becoming very philosophical, but okay. We'll have audience questions. But there's the Gyan Yoga,
The Bhakti Yoga.
Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, and I won't go into the fourth, Tantra, etc., because that's only for the adepts. Us normal people should not try it. So these three are the ways to reach the divine. Gyan Yoga is knowledge, Bhakti Yoga is devotion and love, Karma is action, right? What our ancestors said, there are strengths and weaknesses to all three approaches. Gyan Yoga, I'm a follower of Gyan Yoga, for example. Gyan Yoga, your job is to learn as much as you can. Learn more and more and more over many lifetimes till you know all that there is to know, and then you become God. You get nirvana, you get moksha. What is the downside of the Gyan Yoga? Ego. Okay? Because people who have Gyan automatically start looking down on others. Arey kya bevkoof hai? Right? It feeds your ego. And that distracts you from what that path is. Perfect example of this, Ravan. Right? What a Gyani, what an intellectual. Did he do good for himself or for those around him? No. Why? Ego. Right? So that's the plus and minus of this path. Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is love for the divine, for the world, for, your family, for your country. My wife, I love my wife a lot, right? She's here, Shivani. Applause for her. Okay. Now, what is the risk in the path of bhakti and love? That you start hating everything that is not the object of your affection. So if I love my God, I will hate all other gods and goddesses. If I love my country, I will hate all other countries. If I love my wife, I will hate all the other women, which is kind of stupid, right? So what is the risk on this path? Control yourself from hating that which is not the object of your affection. I'm a very, very patriotic Indian, extremely patriotic, okay? Even if the national anthem starts playing somewhere on TV, I'll immediately stand up. That doesn't mean I have to hate other countries. There's no reason for that. Why should I do that? Right? That's bhakti. Karma is the path of action. People are at work. Right? The Bhagavad Gita teaches you karma yoga. What are the risks of this approach? Judgment. Right? People who are lazy will judge them. People who are, someone else may be following bhakti yoga. That's their choice here. Okay. So be aware of the strengths and weaknesses of the path you've chosen. That's what our answer is. There is no perfect path. Be aware of those strengths, be aware of those weaknesses, make your own choices, live with the consequences.
Yeah, two questions arise from that. One is, of course, not directly connected to what you were saying. That because I always wondered that you have written about Shiva, who of course is your Ishta Devata. You have also written about Rama, but the Mahabharata is supposed to be the most dramatic of our
Coming,
epics.
it's coming.
It's coming. So look out for it. It's coming, the Mahabharata, and Amish's take on it. The other question was, you speak about the different paths, and you also talk about the contradiction in a way between the heart and the head, right? The heart says okay to Murti Puja, but the head says perhaps not. So, but you don't see any contradiction in, let's say, following one path, not necessarily hating the other paths, but how does one choose that path?
But on the point of the head not following Murti Puja, it's more because of a modern education system. It's taught us to deride our own way, our own ancestral path. The entire point of the Indian education system is पढ़ा लिखा के बच्चे को अंग्रेज बनाओ. That's the entire aim of the Indian education system. We get cut off from our culture, including Murti Puja, which is why the heart still feels attracted to it. You talk to many kids, many youngsters, and most of my readers are the youth. When I talk to them, they'll say that the only reason I'm doing it is to keep my parents happy. I don't really believe in it. I don't know how many of you youngsters say that or believe that. Many of my youth readers tell me that. Why? Because somewhere in their mind they've been told, yeah, this is stupid. Patthar ki puja karke. Bollywood movies also tell you, ye patthar pe thook laga do, people start praying to it. Look how stupid these idol worshippers are. So your brain is telling you that it's not wise, but your heart still feels attracted to it. Why? Because it's a legacy of thousands and thousands of years, right? So we are trying, this book is to unlock your brain to the beauty of Murti Puja. In terms of having multiple, being comfortable with multiple truths, this I think is at the heart of the Indian way, which is what makes us on average such smart people, right? Because we can handle contradictions. And like I said, we gave that example of Lord Karthik and the north and the south. It comes instinctively to us.
Yeah, in a way, we are also addressing this diversity, plurality in our festival, because very often the Western notion of a nation is that it should have one language, one, one
That's not
flag.
the Indian way.
Right. Whereas India has always seen plurality as a strength rather than as a weakness.
Absolutely. I was in Vadakkunnathan in Kerala a few years back. Any Malayalis here? Give a shout. Yeah. You've been to Vadakkunnathan? Yeah. It's a beautiful Lord Shiva temple. Okay, so I was in that area. I was told by my local interlocutor, let's go there. We went out there. There were no North Indians or even, I couldn't recognize any non-Keralite also out there. Some of them recognized me, started talking to me. I could speak only English and Hindi. They could speak only Malayalam. Okay, so we couldn't communicate with each other. And then the Aarti to Lord Shiva started. And they started the Tanda Stotra. And all of us got so emotional. And this is what a nation is, right? They were speaking Malayalam. I was speaking English and Hindi. And with that one hymn and Lord Shiva, we were joined and we were tears in our eyes. This is what the Indian concept of nation is. I don't have to give up what I am. You don't have to give up what you are. And we have a common ground of working together.
But is religion only a point that connects us?
No. I'm just giving one example.
Yeah.
I go to Haji Ali and there are Muslims out there. You go to Haji Ali in Mumbai, outside of a Friday, majority of the people there are actually non-Muslims, right? Haji Ali in Dargah in Mumbai. I gave the examples of what Indian Muslims and Indian Christians believe. Religion is just one example. There are various other symbols like this. We connect around cricket. We connect around so many things. Because we are comfortable with multiple truths, we don't think that we have to give up one identity to accept another identity. The people out here, I'm sure, are proud Hyderabadis, proud of being from Telangana, and are proud of being an Indian as well. There is no contradiction. right? In that, I live in Maharashtra. I'm a Mumbaikar. My father's family is from UP. My wife is a Jain from Rajasthan. We're all proud Indians. We all have multiple identities. Uh, we don't have to pick one to let go of another. That's why in the US, their concept of nation building is a melting pot. Everyone has to give up their identities and come into one. Remember, el pluribus unum, that's
Yeah.
their thing, from the many one. Whereas the Indian approach is a salad bowl. We'll all keep our identities, but we are all in the same bowl as well.
Yeah, I was thinking, for example, assume that there is somebody who has no faith, right? And Hinduism also accepts that.
Yeah, yeah.
And if that is the case, if religion is, because you gave the example of the temple, the dargah, etc., but today being what it is, I was wondering, why not something like constitution, which brings us
Why not?
together?
Why not? Absolutely. Now, it's a constitution that all of us have accepted, right? It's a constitution that is flexible, that has been amended various times. We have a republic where the state, we have the strongest state we've had in 1,000 years. There was a time just, just 100 years ago where foreign armies could come into the heart of our country and kill millions of people. Winston Churchill ordered a famine in India.
Yeah.
It has been taught to many of us Indians. In 1942, he ordered a famine in India, in Bengal, killed 4 million of our fellow Indians in Bengal. A foreigner could just do that in 1942. Nothing like that can happen now. A lot of this is because of our constitution. There are various symbols. There is the constitution. There is our symbols, our flags. There are things which actually unite us, and that's the Indian way. We don't have to give up one identity to accept the other.
You mentioned, for example, people who don't believe in plurality, etc., leading to destruction, desecration of temples, etc. But hasn't that happened? There are actually two questions. Is iconoclasm specific to a religion or it's a way of thinking, number one? And two, hasn't this kind of desecration and destruction of temples, did it always happen, did it always was done by people from outside? Wasn't there any instances of within the country, temples or idols being...
The key question is scale. So, did the Romans destroy the Temple of Solomon? Yes. But did the Romans go around all of Europe, Africa, destroying any other worship place and forcing them to accept Roman gods? No. In fact, Romans used to accept the gods of, they had this concept of mutual respect. It was there in India as well. That if they conquer Syria, the Syrian gods would get temples in Rome and Roman gods would start getting worshipped in Syria. That was mutual respect. It was only the Jews at one time that they did it. So it wasn't a policy. This is the Roman pagans, right? In India, did iconoclasm happen? Yes, but again, it was one-off. It wasn't like a policy. There were two groups, and that's what we mentioned in there. And we must be careful when we specify those two specific groups. European Christians and Turkic Muslims, who went around the world massacring practically all idol worshipping cultures. Most of the idol worshipping cultures didn't die out by themselves. They were all massacred out of existence. But it's not all Christians, because African Christians didn't do anything. Indian Christians didn't do anything. Indonesian Muslims didn't do anything. Right? It's specifically these two groups, European Christians and Turkic Muslims. And this has been recorded in many books. They've recorded in their own texts also. So even in modern books, for example, Catherine Nixie's Destruction of the Classical World, where she speaks of the destruction of the Greco-Roman temples, the pagan temples, the pharaonic Egyptian temples, the Zoroastrian fire temples in Iran, they're all gone. Zoroastrians are alive only in India. And the Turkic Muslims, in fact, destroyed many other Islamic cultures as well. The high point of Arab Islamic culture was actually the Abbasids, right? And the Abbasids were very liberal people. They had their palace of learning, they had huge knowledge centers. Who destroyed the Abbasids? The same Turkic Muslims. The ones who came here went out there as well. These two groups, yes, they've done massacres at a scale that has not been seen in the history of humanity, that has not been seen in the history of life itself, perhaps. It needs to be studied. Why did these two groups do such horrific crimes? In India, when they came, they attacked Indian Muslims as well. Faiz Ahmad has, a Pasmanda Muslim scholar, has written of it.
Just I think one last question and then we will open it to audience questions. But I was also thinking, for example, there are instances of, what I'm asking is that the destruction or the desecration of the temples, is it based on a religious philosophy or is it a kind of a political thing? Because every invading ruler, right? And there are instances of, for example, the Jain temples being destroyed, Jain literature being destroyed by Hinduism. So, is it specific to those two civilizations that you are talking about?
I think the best thing to do is actually to read their own texts. Fortunately, because of online, all these texts are now available. So, for example, when the Romans destroyed, say, the Jewish Temple of Solomon, there are texts of that time on why they did it, and they clearly said it's not religion. They needed to teach them a lesson. But Charlemagne, who massacred many European pagans, millions of pagans in the 8th century, wrote in his own texts why he is doing it. Tarikh-e-Farishte, history books written by Farishte from the Deccan. There himself, the reasons were written. So it's in their own text. It's not that someone else is putting a motive on them. Mahmud Ghazni wrote in his own text. Mahmud Ghori wrote in his own text. If you think about it, like if there were religious differences, this had happened between Rhodes and Egypt, by the way. When Egypt had, I think they had, sorry, not Egypt, Syria. When Egypt had attacked Syria, they had stolen the idols of the gods of the Syrians, brought it back to Egypt. They didn't destroy it, okay? And they returned it to Syria when they paid a huge ransom. If you think about it, that's a logical thing to do. Why destroy the Murti? Okay, ransom it. Okay, you're destroying it because actually you believe it's supposed to be done. And they themselves, they recorded, Babar recorded it. Babar was actually literate, unlike Akbar. So he'd written, the Babar Nama is his own biography, and he himself has written why he did it. By the way, he's himself written what he thought of Indian Muslims also, sadly. And he didn't think very highly of, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I think just one last question from my side. I see that I'm being warned that it is the last 10 minutes. If you look at the way in which you write this book as a kind of a conversation with obviously very evocative names with drawn from mythology, etc. Do you think that this kind of conversations are needed among believers and non-believers?
Absolutely. I genuinely think India can actually drive these conversations because Indians are instinctively liberal. We can have these conversations in a way where it doesn't have to get into a tu meme. Like I was in the UK and I mentioned that in my puja room at home. I of course have a Murti of Lord Shiva and I have other Hindu gods and goddesses, Lord Ram, Lord Ganesh, Saraswati Ma, Kali Ma. But I also have marks and symbols of other faiths. I have a lovely Byzantine painting of Jesus Christ, of Mother Mary. I have a picture of the Kaaba. I have a Star of David. And I have a Zarathustra, a picture of Zarathustra. For many of us Indians, this is not out of the ordinary at all. It's very normal, right? But even in a liberal country like the UK, people would ask me, Ari, but how can you do that? What religion are you following? Are you an atheist or are you this? Whereas to us, it just comes instinctively, right? So we should actually drive these conversations for the world where we can speak of painful things of the past, but from a place of love and find the common ground. That is most critical. One of the things that all of us Indians must remember, that all 1.4 billion of us have to be united. If you're an Indian, you're one of us. Regardless of the religion you practice, the caste you're from, the community you're from, the region you're from, the language you speak, it doesn't matter. If you're an Indian, you're one of us. We must be clear on that. Only then will we have the strength to take our rightful place in the Committee of Nations. We can really drive these conversations, India.
Thank you. I think that's a wonderful note to end our conversation and open it up to others. One there, the first. Yes, go ahead.
Hello.
Hi.
Good morning. Lovely to have you here. Welcome
Thank
to
you.
Hyderabad.
Thank you.
So my question is, it's basically seeking you for an answer for a personal dilemma. So I consider myself to be extremely spiritual. My Ram is Kabir's Ram. However, my Hindu heart is very full and happy to see the Ram Mandir in Ayodhya, and I feel very proud. But when I do feel proud, or when I worship my Ram in the mandir of my house, I feel I'm cheating on my spirituality. Like, because Ghat mein Ram. Ram is nowhere but here. Ram's everywhere. It's in your heart. He's in your heart. But then why am I worshipping this Murti? Why do I need a Murti? But I do, because I feel amazing when I worship.
Because your heart pulls you there.
Right. So
The
I
contradiction that
feel,
you were talking.
then I question my spirituality and I consider it to be a hoax. So my question to you is, how do I solve this dilemma of mine? How do I answer it?
Okay.
What?
One thing that could answer your dilemma is this book here, Idols. So now that's what you call a smooth marketing pitch. Okay. That will explain the concept to you. But having said that, let me answer your question with another example. Okay. And this is a gentleman called Iqbal Saab. Okay. Iqbal Saab was one of the litigants, one of the Muslim litigants in the court case that happened. Okay. In the Supreme Court. You know, essentially, it was a long case, happened over decades, right? And Iqbal Saab is on, he'd said, I'm paraphrasing, that if I see evidence that there was indeed a temple, I myself will accept it. Okay? Now the court judgment happened basis the evidence that was put up. What Iqbal Saab did, and he made a public statement on this, okay, that I want to be there on Jan 22nd to do the darshan of Ram Lalla, of Lord Ram. He was there, okay, Iqbal Saab. Now, he's not any less of a Muslim. He's a very proud, devout Muslim. He's a namazi Muslim, does it 5 times a day. But he saw the evidence and that told him, no, actually I should do darshan out here as well. Now, is there a contradiction in there? Only a Western mind would see that contradiction, because a Western mind would say, this is the truth, that must be false. If I love my God, I must hate all other gods. If I love, I'm giving a silly example. If I love my wife, that's not silly, I do love my wife, okay? But if I love my wife, I must think all other women are useless. That's stupid, right? And the Indian mind is comfortable with contradictory truths if it gives you peace. Why? Because the Indian mind realizes the world is not binary. The world is not simplistic. It's not black and white. The world is actually in shades of grey. Okay? So therefore, you have the right to follow your spiritual path because that appeals to your mind. But you do what appeals to your heart as well when you worship. I'm a follower of Gyan Yoga, right? That's what I like to do. I like to read, grow my mind, grow, right? But that doesn't mean that I will not go and worship. I was lucky to be there on Jan 22nd. I went and both my wife and I, we went and did darshan, we prayed, I cried. I actually felt so emotional out there. Iqbal Saab, who does his namazes but was also there at the temple. This is a contradiction only to the Western mind. To the Indian mind, it's the way the world is. The world itself is contradictory. You see the beauty in all. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. One question here. Where is the mic? One question here. One question here.
Namaste, sir.
Namaste.
My name is Harivardhan. I've recently read Life of Pi, and after grasping,
Please keep the questions very short so that we can take many questions.
I have recently read Life
Because
of
sadly
Pi.
my answers are long.
I've recently read Life of Pi, and after what I grasped from this conversation, I want to know what you feel or what you think about that book.
Well, I thought it was a lovely book, deeply philosophical book. And essentially, in a way, it is one of the views of the Indic philosophy is that which truth gives you more peace? And if you believe in that, then what's the harm? Right? As long as you're not forcing it on someone else. That in a way is what life, at its core, if you set aside the fantastical story, at its core, that's what it's about. Which story, which truth gives you more peace? And it's giving you more peace and momentum, then follow it. As long as you're not hurting someone else.
Yeah, here.
Yeah, so I have a question. Since today's Republic Day,
It's working.
yeah, since today's Republic Day, I would like to quote something Ambedkar said. He said, "I am no worshipper of idols. I believe in breaking them." In context of that, don't you think that idol worship is rooted in casteism?
The original Ramayana and Mahabharata, which actually speaks of idols. Right? Who wrote the original Ramayana? Valmiki ji. What caste was Valmiki ji from? In fact, there is a scheduled caste community in the north called the Valmikis. Right? So Valmiki ji himself was a scheduled caste. Who wrote the Mahabharata? Okay, trick question. Lord Ganesh wrote it, but who composed it? Ved Vyas. Ved Vyas, what was his? Ved Vyas is actually just a title, right? Anyone who compiles the Vedas gets the title Ved Vyas. His original name was Krishna Dwaipayan. He was the son of a fisherwoman. In today's context, he would probably be called a tribal, a scheduled tribe, right? They have written the foundational text, the entry Ramayana and the Mahabharata, where they speak of Murti Puja as well. I think the beauty of the Indian way, what I was saying earlier, is respect for multiple truths. Are there schools of philosophies in India which don't believe in Murti Puja? Yes, there are many actually. Charvaks don't, for example. Okay? It's a Hindu school, Charvak. They don't believe in Murti Puja. The strict Jains, my wife is a Jain, the strict Jains actually don't believe in Murti Puja. The Hinayana Buddhists actually don't believe in Murti Puja. The Mahayana Buddhists do. There is openness to different points of view, and even more so, there are schools of philosophy in the Indian way which don't even believe in God. Sankhya, Mimamsa, Charvak, they don't believe in a creator God. So they are atheists, right? There are parts of Jain philosophies which don't believe in a creator God. They believe in the law of cause and effect, karma, dharma, right? So you don't even have to believe in a creator God to be a part of this. So therefore, you can have different points of view. I completely respect Baba Saheb's view. I've read many of his books. I genuinely think his books should be taught in our education system, including actually his brilliant economic. Many don't know this, that he was a brilliant economist and wrote brilliant economic papers. But that's the beauty of the Indian way. There are multiple points of view, and there is mutual respect.
Yeah, one question there, and the next question
Hello?
at the back. Yeah.
I need to
Yeah,
stand
go
up.
ahead.
Hello, sir. Happy to have you here. What I feel is the ancestral India is always the land of debate and logic. And then now I don't know how many kids are in schools. We are teaching children only science, and then it's time to teach them scientific temper and also the ability to see a different, a diagonal point of view. For example, in 10th century, okay, the Rashtrakutas have gone and destroyed, the temples of Pratiharas, who are their enemies, okay, which are basically Hindus. And then another example is, in Kashmir area,
They took the idols, they didn't destroy the temples. Rashtrakutas were from the south, but sorry, carry on.
Yeah.
One more thing is, in Kashmir during the 12th century. This has been recorded in Raj Tarangini by Kalhana himself. He said the Shaivite kings have destroyed the Buddhist monasteries. So it's not, I think it's not just the Turkish Muslims are only the Western Christians. This is there in every human being. It's time for Hindus
So, ma'am-
also to introspect, to look back, and then to see, to
So, ma'am, are there
examine ourselves.
cases where Hindus, Buddhists, Jains out here in Southeast Asia, Roman, Greek pagans in Europe, did they attack other religious places? Yes. The point I make in this book is of scale. There's a difference between a murder and a genocide. Okay. If, for example, how did the Central Americans go? Zoroastrian Persians, is there any fire temple anywhere in Iran? No, every single one has been wiped out. Every single one. That is a practically. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear. I'm happy to
No,
be corrected.
I think
No,
the
happy
point-
to be corrected, please. Don't
Yeah.
get me wrong. Happy to be corrected. I'm talking about scales. Are there any pagans around? Are there any pagans around? In Europe? In the Middle East? That's what happened. Abbasid culture was wiped out by the same
Yeah.
Turks.
I'm sorry, but I think the dialogue can take place later.
Happy to be corrected, please.
Yeah, I think
Thanks for the conversation just now. I'm taking a look at it from the other side, a different lens to the story that you have told us. I'm just looking at it and saying, you said the Indians are very comfortable with the multiple truths and multiple identities, makes them more tolerant. I was just wondering, one of the lens through which you can look at it is because the Indians have been colonized over the years through various invaders, it kind of our legacy that there's an ingrained of scarcity, of fear and things like that. That actually shapes our mind and ingrains that rather than just looking at our religion that makes us more tolerant and
Yeah.
multifaceted.
I think this boy,
I get the question.
the last, it's okay. I think it was more of an observation. That's okay. And this is the last question, sorry. And since they form the largest fan club of Amish's books, I have
Thank
to
you.
end with that question. Yes.
Hello Amish sir, my name is Pranab. I am your biggest fan.
Thank you.
I have one question to ask you. How does one go about pursuing the path of Gyan Yoga in the best possible way so that one does not gain any ego or to minimize the ego gained?
A lot of that is actually personal choices. Read as much as you can, and one of the things I always suggest, try and engage and read the views of those you may disagree with. That's how your mind grows, and that's how you keep your ego under check. Where the problem in the modern day is people only will end up engaging only with those that they agree with. Then your mind doesn't grow. You must read the books of, like for example, let me give you my personal example. I thought there are many in the UK who think the British Raj was a good idea. I'm an Indian, I disagree, right? Now there's this brilliant historian called Niall Ferguson. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's a British historian. He's a scholar, right? He actually thinks the British Raj was a good idea, okay? I read his books as well. Why? Because I want to read the best point of view from a school of thought that I disagree with, because that's how my mind will grow. What naturally happens with that, you naturally become much more humble, right? You're willing to listen to a different point of view. That's when you come to your point of view, you've actually considered various thoughts, okay? You've actually spoken as much as you can. No one individual will have all knowledge, okay? And one of the key things to bear in mind when you're going on the Gyan Yoga path, keep your emotions under check. Because moment your emotions get involved, you're actually on the path of bhakti, you're not on the path of Gyan Yoga. Because then you start getting agitated, you start shouting, screaming. That's not the path of knowledge. That's what Ravan went on. Never on the path of knowledge should always be about calm, listen, engage, listen to and particularly go for opposite point of views. Because that's how, points of view, because that's how you grow, right? Read as much as you can, stay calm, keep emotions under check. That's how you'll grow. That's how you'll keep your ego under check as well.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, but we have to close it here. And let me mention that Amish has agreed to sign his books. The books are available here, right? you can get your copies signed and also, in the process also have further chat with Amish.
Thanks,
Thank you very
guys.
much.
Thank you.
And I'm doing the first signing. Please sign it for me. Check. Check. Yeah. Amish will be at the book point. He will be there. His books are there. Those who are interested in getting his book signed, please go to book point.